Live from Schorr Manor Studios, this is Tales from a Small Town Journalist with Matt Schorr.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist, the podcast dedicated to all the weird and wonderful stories you're only going to hear about from reporters working in small communities just like yours. I'm Matt Shore, and I was one of those small town journalists for nearly 10 years before I finally hung up my notepad and my camera. And in that time, I had some unique and interesting experiences working with the public, and I got to know a whole lot of other reporters who also had some unique and interesting experiences working with the public. Before I go any further, I do want to make sure and mention that this is a listener supported podcast supported by wonderful folks just like you. There are a handful of great ways that you can help show some support. First and foremost, be to check out our merchandise. Go to mattshore.net. Check out our bookstore. We've got books for young and old. We've got horror. We've got science fiction. We've got comics. We've got novels. Just a little bit of everything. Go check it out. See if anything there strikes your fancy. Thank you. Thanks for bearing with me on that one. Another great way that you can show some support would be just to spread the word about this podcast. Let folks know about us. Tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell a random stranger on the street about this goofy podcast and the goofy stories that we have to tell. And make use of social media while you're at it. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everything that you can possibly utilize to let folks know about us. We would greatly appreciate it. This episode, I'm actually catching up with an old friend, Kevin Weeks. Kevin Weeks and I worked together for a hot minute when I still worked in West Kentucky over at the Mayfield Messenger newspaper. He was in sports and I was in breaking news. And one of the things that I've often thought about over the years is even though I was right there reporting things like, political news, city council meetings, fiscal court meetings about, the movers and shakers in the community and about the real things that are happening. And that's all very important. Nothing is more or less important than the other. I was always a little bit jealous of sports reporters because I really felt like they got to report on the heart and soul of the community. Odd as that may sound, because as important as the mayor is, important as city council, police, all those groups are, they're vital to any community. The real heart and soul of so many small communities seems to be wrapped up in their sports programs, particularly in their high school sports. Football, growing up for me, it's almost like its own religion to people. It's like you go to church on Sunday, but you go to the altar of the football stadium the day before. So uh, it's a vital part, and I was always a little bit jealous that I never really got to be right there every once in a while to report on that and get that side of the community. But Kevin did. Kevin got to tell those stories. Kevin still gets to tell those stories. And it was cool to catch up with him and see what's been going on. A lot has happened since we last saw each other. Uh, since we worked together, I've had two kids, and he's had a kid go through high school. So a lot has changed for the both of us. So it was cool catching up and getting perspectives from him and the people in sports and what sports journalism has gone through and the changes that we've gone through for the past few years. So, not least of which was the pandemic that, fingers crossed, we're crawling our way out of. So it was a fun chat. So let's stop wasting time. I'm going to shift gears now and we'll go catch up with Kevin Weeks. This episode of Tales from a Small Town Journalist is brought to you by Grave Diggers Magazine, unearthing the horror stories of yesteryear and uniting them with the horror of today. Enjoy terrifying comics from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, alongside columns and interviews from horror creators of the modern era. Grave Diggers, published by Schorr Manor Studio and available at mattshore.net. All right, I'm chatting with Kevin Weeks, an old colleague and friend, the sports editor from the Messenger in Tennessee. How's it going, Kevin? Thanks for joining me again, one of my returning guests.
Well, thank you for having me back. I guess the last time went okay. Neither one of us got strung up or taken away by anybody, so I guess we're okay. Glad to be here with you again. And yes, it's the Messenger in Union City, and that's where I am now. So, sports editor. That's right. Yes.
All right, cool. So now with newspapers especially, you got to be a jack of all trades. So being the editor there, I assume that means you have to do just about everything. Am I right?
That's right. When I go to a ball game, I'm covering as everything, as a writer, as a photographer, and then I go back as an editor. So I hope my editing skills are okay and that my subject verb agreement is right. But the main thing is the writing part of it. We go to a ball game, we keep stats as well as take notes. Again, like I mentioned, the taking photos, that's got to be a big priority. And I've tried to be a lot better at that. I've tried to actually get pretty good at being a photographer. I enjoy doing it. So I've seen some YouTube tutorials on how to do things, and I've tried to follow some of that on some other things, not just sports. But yes, you have to be in this business at a small paper. You have to do all of it. We do page design. I'm part of that too. I go in when I'm done writing, when I'm done editing. I edit my own photos that I've shot, and then I put the pages together, and that's how we get from day to day.
You also get to do the social media stuff.
We do some. I don't do as much as I should. I need to do a lot more than what I'm doing. But yeah, we do that. We have the messenger has a Facebook page, and we try to update our online edition. In fact, having since gone to 2 days a week, we do an online paper on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I do not contribute very much to that. Mainly because, and I'll tell you the main reason why. I mean, I have not had much feedback positive about that, and then we can get into that as to maybe why not. But I don't do much of the online. I'll do special stuff. Like I just got back from the spring fling, which in Tennessee is the spring sports high school state championship. It's an Olympic style thing where 5 or 6, I think it's 5 sports, maybe 6 now. All the state championships are held at one site, one town, over the course of a week. So I had some teams and some individuals there, so I covered that. And so I would do some social media stuff from that and do a special page in our online from that. And I was also at the NCAA basketball first and second round in Indianapolis. So I did some stuff online and social media for that as well. But I don't do much of it. I don't do nearly as much as I probably should.
I am curious about your thoughts on social media, but first I did want to ask, like, as we're seem to be clawing our way out of the pandemic that we had, what's sports coverage been like during this time?
We actually were okay. Now when it first hit, everything here was canceled, like everywhere else. I mean, the whole world stopped in the middle of March of 2020, and everything here stopped as well. And we thought at the time, okay, well, we'll see if we can get 2 weeks, and maybe we'll get a shot to finish up, or maybe a month. And a month went by, and we weren't done. And the TSSAA, which is the high school organization here, they thought, okay, well, maybe we can get 1 weekend or 2 weeks in and then run the championships. But it just never happened. So that whole 2020 first part, when everything first happened, we were shut down completely. I mean, we had nothing to do, and we turned into, as far as my coverage, I didn't have anything to go cover. So what I wound up doing, a lot of papers did, a lot of small papers especially did this. We focused on the seniors, and we did senior spotlights. And I tried to do as many as I could. I got in touch with coaches. I sent them some like questionnaires, basically, very similar to the things I do for my football preview section, where we question the cover guys, and like ask them what's been their favorite moment, what they love most about high school, what was their favorite class, what's your favorite song to listen to before a game, how do you get yourself ready for a ball game or an event or whatever. And so we just did senior sketches, and some of them were funny. And I remember one girl who said her favorite person was her brother because he tormented her all the time, and she was finally able to get back at him because she was a better athlete than he was, and just a lot of fun stuff like that. But some interesting things were part of that. But other than that, I didn't have anything going on. And then summer comes, and our newspaper goes from 5 days a week to 2 days, which wasn't. We called it the pandemic reasoning, but we were going to do it anyway. People don't really know that, but we were going to do it anyway. We just because of advertising, lack of it. But then we get into fall of 2020, and it starts getting a little bit more back to normal here. We had a football season in 2020, and I had 3 or 4 games that were canceled because of COVID. And the TSSAA had a thing to where if you canceled for COVID, the other team got the win, you didn't get a loss, but it would in a way that they could determine postseason standings. So, but we were able to, when the fall of 2020 came, we were able to get all of our fall sports in, and then basketball indoors. We played with limited crowds until after Christmas, into December, and then spring came along, and it's been basically normal since then. Ever since basically spring of 2021, we've had it normal. And this past year, the fall of 2021 through basketball, and in this spring that just finished up, everything was normal. I mean, we were right back to normal.
Any lasting changes? Like, do you work from home more, or is it hybrid, or are you just completely back in the office like it used to be?
I'm back in the office like I used to be, but I do is more at home than maybe I used to, simply because we don't have the Monday, Wednesday, Friday anymore. So I can stay home a little bit later in the morning, and I can get out of the office earlier and do more stuff at home. I can do more checking of wire copy, or do more photo editing at home, things like that, and then bring that back to the office. So I don't spend nearly as much time in the office as I used to, simply because of that. But we are back in the office every day. We do have hours, and in fact, for us, we really never stopped going to the office. I mean, it's a small paper, about 15 to 20 people in it, and we're distanced out enough to where we were really able to do that, and didn't have many problems. We had a couple of people that came down with COVID, but they were taken care of. Anything that needed to be quarantined off and shut off until the things were cleaned up were done. But we really never had to. But there are more people working more at home than they used to, and I'm certainly one of them.
Okay. Now, I guess getting back to social media, it sounded like you had some thoughts about the pros and cons of utilizing that with journalism. What thoughts did you have on that?
You know, it's interesting what we are, and I in newspapers, in print newspapers, we're in a transition that I don't know if we'll figure it out, because I believe it's generational. If you look at, I was born in '68, so that's Gen X, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. That's like right at the beginning of it. So I'm more boomer than anything. But you take my generation back, and we're used to the printed newspaper. We're used to having that in our hands. You take millennials on to now, to this day, these generations now, they're not used to that. My daughter, born in '99, she does not read a printed newspaper, and I work at one. You know, she does not pick one up unless she has to have one. Unless she had to have one for a school project, she does not look at a printed newspaper. Just doesn't. That's not her generation. It's not her thing. It's not her people's thing. And I think we're kind of in a thing to where small papers, especially because of the small paper, we worked at one together. As much as we hate to say it, as much as we hate to admit it, we're kind of in the scrapbook business too. And moms and dads and grandparents and aunts and uncles, they like to cut out articles of their kids and their neighbors' kids and put them in books. I just was at a banquet, a high school girls basketball banquet for a county school here just not long ago, and every senior got a big scrapbook filled with cutouts of articles and photos that had been in the paper of them during their senior year, their 4 years really of school. And I don't know who put it together, but it was a parent or a grandparent or somebody like that. And so we're kind of in that crosshair. We're kind of in a big gray area there between generations, is like the printed newspaper and don't read printed newspapers. And I don't know if we're going to figure it out, because like I said, because it's not advertising based, it's not this based or that based, it's generations, and one group of generations wants it, another one doesn't, and so we're kind of caught in the middle. And right now this is the middle, and so we're kind of in that mix. And I'll tell you, this happened to me during the first COVID year, and the first year we came back for football season. We had gone to a 2-day-a-week paper, Tuesday and Thursday, and my original philosophy was I still wanted to do what we call Sports Monday. And back in a 5-day-a-week paper during football season, we would have something called a Sports Monday. It would be a special part of the newspaper, a special section, including when we first started, it was a tab that was printed with it. As we got older, it became a broadsheet that was put in the middle of it. It was 4-page pullout all color. And I wanted to continue that after we had switched from 5 days to 2 days. I wanted to keep doing that on Monday. So what I did was that first Monday, after the first week of games, I did just like I would do a regular Sports Monday, all of the game stories that were written, all of the stats, photos, like a little bit of wire copy in there as well, but as much local as I could. And I made like a 3-page addition to what our 4-page Monday online edition was. Then on Tuesday, the printed paper, I just did a roundup of those 3 high school games. And if there's anything else over the weekend that I didn't get to, a Tennessee game, UT Martin, Maury State, a golf tournament, a PGA or NBA or whatever, because it's late August, late August. So that became a 2-page printed edition. Very next football game, very next Friday night, I'm at a game. We have not done the printed paper like we used to. It's been just a roundup. It's like 1 photo instead of 3 or 4 from the high school game. Very first Friday after that, an assistant coach at the team at the game I was covering comes over to me. I thought he was going to fight me. I really thought he wanted to beat me up because we didn't have the Sports Monday and Tuesday like we had done it in the past. They were really upset about it. And as the season went along, and that's what I was doing, anybody that came up to me and said anything to me, it was negative. They didn't like it. They didn't like the online. I don't read that online thing. I would get that all the time. I don't read that online thing. Anytime I mention online, I don't read that thing. So I went through it for the whole year because I'd committed myself to it. And I wasn't going to let some people change my mind, even though really that's kind of what I probably should have done. But I didn't let them change my mind. But when basketball started, everything changed. And since then, I now do a roundup on Monday and the full sports. I don't call it Sports Tuesday, but that's all now Tuesday's paper printed edition. So that first couple of weeks in the football season after COVID and after it switched from 5 to 2 days, that was really interesting. And so that's why I wonder I don't participate as much in the online edition because I'm just not getting good feedback from it. And I'm the one that's out. I'm the one that's at ball games. I'm the one when I'm at this when we're at ball games, it's not a meeting where there are 10 people there. It's a ball game where there are 210 or 310 or 500 or 1,000 people there. Well, if 5 of them come up to me and say, I don't like what you're doing, then I'm guessing they speak for a whole lot of people. So I don't participate much in the online except for special occasions, but I probably should. I definitely should do more social media. I do not do nearly as much social media as I should. I should do more Twitter, certainly more Facebook, because that's what people have. Is what most of the people around here will read. Not as much Instagram, but you don't do much with that anyway, as far as a newspaper is concerned, but other than photos. But I should do more social media. I don't do the online because I just don't. I just get negative feedback about it.
To give TikTok a try, you'd be a natural for that one, right?
Oh, I would really be a good TikTok. I would be a great influencer. People would be completely influenced away from the newspaper business as a whole if I got on TikTok. It'd be the death of the industry.
TikTok is quite the trend right now.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll stop right there. I'll stop with that word. It's interesting.
There you go. That sums it up pretty well. Yeah, I share your thoughts on that. The journalism as a whole and newspapers especially are definitely in a transition phase. I know I heard people, I shared the quote, I heard back in the 80s, print is dying, print is dead. And my attitude was always, it's not dying, it's just changing. It's shifting off of like a printed page, either to digital or something. The question is, what comes out on the other side? Is it just as good as it used to be? That's what I'm scared of right now, because I'm seeing that there are parts of it that I do think still are. Like I'm still a firm believer in the AP. Like I've seen all the breakdowns of who's the most reliable and whatever. And my last editor I worked for used to say, until the AP says it in the Associated Press, until they say it, it didn't happen. And I still cling to that because I still firmly believe in them. Once you get away from them, then I start getting really skeptical.
I will still trust a lot of the established newspapers that have websites. But now Joe Smith, who wants to be a blogger.
Yeah.
And doesn't, that guy, and he's just a fan of something, so he wants to talk about it. That's not my guy, but people who've been in the industry and have started their own stuff. Now those guys I trust, they know what they're doing. They've been in the business, and the newspapers that are online, I trust them. I have a feeling that at some point, and I think it's coming in one way or another. And I know that some organizations have gone to this. Gannett is one of them that's kind of moved in this direction, that they're going all in on the online. In fact, I know people a friend of ours who's just got out of newspapers, Kevin Patton up in Henderson, Kentucky. He told me that, Gannett runs their newspaper there and all the ones in Indiana. And their philosophy was, we want all of our local stuff. We want to concentrate on the online, and the print edition, do what you can with that, but they've pushed in the direction of the online. And I think I just have a feeling that's what we're all going to have to do, and say, hey, that's the future. So, and we better be now with the future, because that's what people are reading. And if you hate to say it, but if certain parents don't like it, then certain people are just not going to like it.
Yeah. I'm technically a millennial, but sort of like you, I'm on the edge. So I'm a bit more Gen X than millennial. I got a little bit of both. I once saw a description saying that they called it a zennial, or either a zennial or an exennial. And what that means is I possess the best qualities of both. And I just immediately figured, this guy's trying to sell something to me. I don't know what it is, but
okay.
Anyway.
Well,
So
I wonder if that makes me a Boom X or a Exumer,
I like Exumer. Exumer sounds good.
I love it. Now, having just said it, I want to be called an Exumer from now on.
Let's hang to that. That should be the title of this episode, Exumer.
Okay, that's what I am. An Exumer.
There you go.
Just X.
Anyway, yeah, I relate to that because I feel more connected with Gen X, but even so, like right now, when I read my news in the morning, I read it on my phone. And I'm reading it from an app for the local newspaper. So,
sure.
So yeah, that's why the transition, it can be okay. It can be a good thing. It's just one medium to another, so long as the quality of journalism is maintained. And that's my current fear, because what I've seen happen is it's becoming a younger and younger person's game. Like the newsrooms, if you go to now, it's like the people there are younger and younger, and there's not, like, I'm sure you had this, and when I had this grouchy old editor who showed me the ropes and didn't mind yelling at me when I got something wrong. Well, you don't have that now. You've got a crowd who hasn't been there very long. They've only done it for like 5 years, and they've got to somehow coach this upcoming generation, which I think is that's a daunting task for that grouchy old guy that had done it for 30 years, much less a guy who's only been there 5.
Oh my goodness, yes it is. Yeah, when I first started here, I started here in Union City. We had my whole staff. We had like 9 of us, and we were all young. I was 18 right out of high school. We had so there was one that was like 19. My sports editor was 25. The son of the publisher, the son of the owner, he was in there too. He was 24. There was another reporter that was like 28. There was a copy editor who was 27, 28, something like that. And then there was the editor who was he wasn't the grouchy guy. He could get grouchy, but he was a jovial old Santa Claus sitting over there in the corner. He was in his mid-50s by then. But he kept us on pace. And the publisher, the owner, he could be a grouchy old guy too. He was a funny dude. David Critchlow. He was a funny dude to start out with, but he'd keep you in line too. I mean, he'd keep you in line on everything. If he walked out his office door at 11:45 a.m. and there was not a paper in his hand for him to prove, it was very loud. Where is my paper? Where is my? And he would yell it to everybody, and we would just be running around trying to finish up, And if you had anything breaking, you still need to get it done. But he kept you in line, and that was the kind of guy that we had growing up. And there really aren't any of those anymore. Now, the newsroom I'm in, we're now all old people, but but we don't have what we do. None of us are what we what we grew up with. None of us are that good. None of us are that guy. None of
Yeah.
us are that person. So yeah, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, last newsroom I was in, and I mean, now it would be fine with all the gray on my face, but
Sure.
this was 10 years ago. You didn't have to agree
Mhm.
that quickly. This was when I was 30. I was 30 years old at the time, and I was one of the old guard. And it's just like,
Yeah,
look, jokes aside, I should not be the old guard when I'm 30 years old.
I totally agree. I don't like it being 54.
It's like now I wouldn't like it, but I could handle it a little bit more. But at the time, I'm
Yeah,
like, no, I'm only 30. Like, never mind how this makes me feel. On top of that, this is a bad thing. You need
yeah.
older, more seasoned people around here showing you guys the ropes. And they
Uh,
had a few of them, but the
mhm,
newsroom was just so small that because the other crowd was all like early 20s,
mhm.
I'm 30, so clearly I was around during the Civil War. So,
Yeah, yeah. You old guy.
yeah.
Oh my goodness, I was around for the Revolutionary War. I was.
They start listing off names like Edward R. Murrow, Walter Cronkite, and everybody just, who? What?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, once upon a time, there were these guys. There were these people.
Yeah. Once upon a time, there were these guys who got up, they told you the news, and then that was it.
Yeah,
They didn't spout opinions. They just told you the news. Then they said good night and good luck, and that
yeah.
was it.
I love those guys. They were the best ones.
They were.
Hmm.
Changed the world for the better.
Exactly.
Yeah. No. But any other like fun transitional stories as far as like how sports has come post pandemic and post transition?
Well, we've just, like I said, here, the smaller areas and here in the state, here in Tennessee, everything kind of got back to what we wanted to do pretty quick. Now, I've been places to where we've had to limit. I couldn't get on the floor to shoot a basketball game at this place or that place, or go to a game in Jackson, Tennessee, in the middle of West Tennessee, to where we needed to wear a mask in there. And I can remember going to a regional tournament game. Omaha Central's boys were playing at Jackson Southside, and Jackson was a bigger town. It was more of a lockdown town because of the population. It's about 50,000, and so they had a little bit more strict priorities and protocols for good reason. They had to have them, and one of them was in the gymnasium. We were there, and it was announced often during any time out or any break, put your mask on or you're going to be thrown out, or you're going to be escorted out. I wouldn't say thrown out. I think it got to be thrown out about third quarter. So, but they did. They were very strict about that. And I have been places where you do have to be aware of that and have to have your mask with you. And that's still the case. Now that's one of the things I do. I check wherever I'm going somewhere that I'm not familiar with or haven't been in a while. I do check what their protocols are if they have any. And that's just part of it. That's just what we're doing now. And for the most part, everything has been fine. And like I said, we got back to normal fairly quick after that 2020 summer. And we're slowly, gradually getting to where it used to be in 2019. But as far as, you still have to check on some things, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. You have to wear a mask in the building. You have to wear a mask in the building. It's not a big deal. I don't get a lot of the hatred toward it. I don't get a lot of the love fest with it either, but I certainly understand it, and we'll follow the rules if that's what their rules are.
Yeah, there are greater hardships in the world, right?
Oh gosh, yeah. If that's my worst first world problem, I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm a bit more angry about gas prices than masks right
Yeah,
now.
really bummed out about those right now. Really bummed out about this pay cut I'm taking.
Yeah, if we could get to 2019 levels, just 2019 gas levels, that'd be all right.
I'd love that. I'd love to get that pay raise back, or that pay scale back.
Yeah, no
because
kidding.
You look at that stuff like it's a pay cut. You look at everything that's gone up. It's costing you more to live than it did last year, or the year before. That's a pay cut. It really is.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole episode to be done on that.
I'm sure there is, with economists who know what they're talking about, and I certainly don't know any of what. I just know that it costs $4.50 a gallon. The last time I filled up, it cost $80. When 2 years ago it was $40, and I'm really not happy about that.
Yeah, not thrilled, not at all. Well, you are probably, as far as coworkers go, I probably worked with you longer than anybody else throughout my illustrious journalistic career.
And it was an illustrious one. I was very proud.
Yeah,
to
so
be there with you
illustrious.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had some
Any
great people.
some, yes. Do you have any distinct memories of our time together?
Oh, there was one. We had a great time. We had a good newsroom. Jim was great to work with in the newsroom. Anybody there would remember Jim Abernathy as a great person, fun guy. He was that crusty guy that you talked about. He could get upset and be that guy, but he was great to be around. Eric, as the publisher, was a great person to be around. Carolyn, who I think really was there since the Civil War. Well, what a wonderful woman she was to work with. Amy up front in the newsroom, and then there were several that sat in that desk in front of me in news that were good, and then there were a couple. One in particular that was a little different. I'll never forget, and I'm not going to mention names. I'm not going to mention her name especially. I think because I've forgotten it, but but I'm not going to mention her name either. Anyway, we already know that she's a she.
Yeah, I was going to go gender neutral here. Go
Yeah,
with
well,
they, them pronouns.
yeah, I messed up there. I probably should have done that as well. But anyway, this person, I remember, and you may correct me on the details, and if you remember the details better than I do, maybe. I remember the overall. And it was one day, an elderly man who had been in the newspaper business for many years and was out of it now. I believe he was living in North Carolina and was working and knew people in Mayfield and knew some of the people there at the Messenger, knew the publisher, knew Eric. And he just came in for a visit one day. I don't think he was selling. I don't think he was doing work that day, but he was in the neighborhood. He was in the area. And he stopped by to see Eric and some of the people that he knew at the Mayfield Messenger. And this person in front of me, once that person found out that this man was a longtime newspaper person, she perked up. She was in it. She was into this conversation. And as they walked around the newsroom and they walked around the rest of the office, and he was getting the tour, and she had her ear here and there, and she was making sure she was involved in this conversation. And I can remember at the end of it, Eric and this man, they come to the front of the newsroom. You know how a newsroom was back then. It was like 8 desks, 2 rows of 4, all facing forward. So it was like a schoolroom, really. And so they're at the front of the newsroom, and we're busy. You and I are busy. We're trying to get the paper. I don't know. I can't remember if Jim was there. I don't think he was. But you and I were there, and Amy was there. And so they come up, and they're talking. And you and I, they're talking to all of us. They're talking to each other mostly, but they're talking to all of us. And you and I are working. We're trying to get our work done. And you're up at the front of the newsroom, and my desk is right behind this person's. And so I can see her being very interested in this conversation, and she wants to get in it so bad. She's got to get into this conversation some way. Well, she got her chance when this man said or asked the question, "Are y'all a morning paper or afternoon?" Now, you and I know what a morning paper is, and we know what an afternoon paper is.
For the sake of anybody listening who might not know, let's specify. The morning papers are done. They come out. They're delivered to your doorstep at the beginning of the day, and means they're worked on the entire day before. Afternoon paper, which what we were, worked on throughout the morning, delivered to your doorstep that afternoon.
Yeah.
Continue. Sorry.
So yeah, no, that's fine. I'm glad you clarified that, because it does need clarification, and it makes this a whole lot more fun to hear what I'm about to say when you know that. So he's up there, and he's just talking there. Him and Eric are just talking generally. He and Eric are just generally talking to each other and about different things. And he asked the question, "Are y'all a morning paper, afternoon?" Well, like you said, you established we're an afternoon paper. Well, here's her chance. She perks up. "We're a morning paper. We come to work in the mornings." And I saw your head go down, and I'm trying not to laugh. And I look up at you, and you look back at me, and we're both trying not to laugh. And what gets me, what was the best part of that, was the look on the man's face when she said that. I mean, it was like, I've just stepped into a bizarro world here. I don't know what in the world. The look on his face was just priceless. It's just, I wish I could describe. I wish I had a photo of his face to show, because it was just so priceless, the look on his face when she said, "We're a morning paper. We come to work in the mornings." I mean, it's just like she sang it, and his face, and I can't remember, was it you or was it Eric? But one of you said loud enough for her to hear, "Oh, we're an afternoon paper. We publish in the afternoons." And she just kind of sat back in the chair. I can't remember. It was either you or Eric. I know it wasn't me, because if I would have said it, I'd started busting out laughing. And probably would have followed it up with some expletives and another word or two. But that was like, I'll never forget. I've told that story so many times to newspaper people, and we get it. We have a good time with that story. That's one of my favorite ones. I mean, it was just a very, very interesting, interaction.
There are many stories to tell about this particular individual, and
Mm-hmm.
we won't pile them all on in one episode.
No,
Plus my time is running out anyway.
I understand.
We'll have to revisit and share some more
Okay.
stories, because there are fun ones
Mm-hmm.
to
Oh, they
be
are.
told there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's again another one of those situations that could really only happen in a small town newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
That sort
They
of
really
thing
do.
would never have happened with like the New York Times. Not happening.
No, it wouldn't have. That person would have never gotten in the front door, never would have gotten through an interview. And if they did get to that point, oh, would they have been out the door real quick?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that
but
would have been funny.
but yeah, as our time winds down to a close, any closing thoughts you got, or any like plugs for your paper you'd like to put out?
Well, let's see. As far as our paper, it's if you want to advertise in it, please call Todd Tillman and advertise in our paper, because that's what's killing the industry. Everybody wants to advertise for free on their social media pages, and so we have a lot of people who used to advertise in our paper. And you can go back and look. We have binded issues that go back to 1929 in our conference rooms, and you can go back and look through the 70s and 80s where we had 24-page daily paper, 26 pages, 28, 30 sometimes. We had big sections in them for special occasions. And now today's paper is 14 pages, and that's wrapping up the whole previous weekend, I mean, 14 pages today, and we'll have 14 on Thursday. So I just want people to advertise in newspapers again. That's what I want people to do. I'm going to kind of coast for the next 2 weeks or the next 2 months, and then football season will start up, and then I'll be doing our football tab, which is an award winner. I'm very proud of the fact that I've been able to continue our tradition as an award-winning newspaper for the football tab, especially. We just got our Tennessee Sports Writers Association awards, and my football tab finished first again. I was first in feature writing, a second in the Writer of the Year award, which is named after Gary Lundy, who was a very good journalist in this state in Memphis for many years before he passed away. So very proud of that, and it'll be football season before you know it, and it'll be fall sports season before you know it too. So I've got about 2 months of resting to do, and then I'll be back at it hot and heavy.
All right. Well, cool. Well, best of luck, and thanks again for joining me. I do appreciate it.
You bet. I hope you have 1 or 2 people to watch.
Me too.
Sure you do.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. It was really cool catching up. Really cool hearing from you, and all the things that you've got going on. The conversation brings up a thought that I've actually had for a while, where even though so much news and journalism is shifting towards a digital format, I think there still is, and possibly will be for quite some time, a place for hard copy, print edition uh, news in some capacity, even if someday it's not the traditional newspapers as we know them. Either in special editions, magazine format, I think there's going to continue to be a market and a desire for that form of journalism, because I distinctly remember several years ago when the Amazon's Kindle came into vogue, and everybody really believed that books were going to start shifting away from print edition toward just all digital. People would just get their books on Kindle. You would no longer see hardback, paperback, anything back books out there. People reading them, they'd have these little Kindles in front of them that they'd be reading. But as time has gone on, there's been a shift, and for a long time, let me backtrack here. For a long time, it looked like we were headed that way, but in the years that followed, things kind of shifted the other direction a bit, and it turns out that print edition books still very much have a market, and started reclaiming a lot of the market that they had supposedly lost to Kindle. And so Kindle certainly didn't go away. There's definitely still a place for reading books in that format. But it turns out that print edition books still have a place in our society as well. So with that in mind, ever since that happened, I feel like journalism will have there's a place for journalism both digital and in print. We're still figuring out what that is, and we may always be trying to figure out what that is, but I think somewhere in the midst of all the minutia, it's definitely there somewhere. Well, as we bring this to a close, I'll just move right into the cheap plugs. Uh, this podcast is a production of Shore Manor Studio, and there are several ways that you can keep up with us on there. First and foremost, you can go to my website, mattschorr.net. That's MATTSCHORR.net. You can see all the information you could possibly want about me, not to mention the bookstore that I mentioned at the very beginning if you want to show some financial love and purchase one of my books there, as well as our newly launched magazine, Grave Diggers, a combination of reprints from old horror comics from days gone by, alongside interviews and columns with horror creators of today. So definitely feel free to check that out. I would be remiss if I didn't encourage it. So please go check out mattshore.net, check out the bookstore. In addition to that, you can also follow Shore Manor on Facebook, facebook.com/Shore Manor. Also on Instagram, instagram.com/Shore Manor. And we're on YouTube, where this episode will be archived in its entirety, along with clips and so many other things that we do. Just go to tinyurl.com/Shore Manor YouTube. And if you want to stay on top of all of our news, we do have a regular newsletter that goes out once a month. I promise we won't bombard your inbox. Just go to tinyurl.com/Shore Manor Newsletter. Finally, if you would like to connect with me and only me, there are several ways that you can do that as well. You can find me on Twitter at the Matt Shore. You can also find me on Instagram at the Shore, and you can find me on TikTok at the one Matt Shore. That's the numeral one Matt Shore. And finally, if you're old school, you can always just shoot me a direct email at mattshore@hotmail.com. So thanks again for checking out this episode. Thanks for sticking around here to the end. And as always, keep reading and keep listening. Thanks.